Before the Rings of Power, there were the Silmarils. Before Sauron, there was his master Morgoth. Before Aragorn and Arwen, there was Beren and Luthien. Join us as we explore Tolkien and all the ages of Middle-earth with your hosts from theonering.com, Jonathan Watson and Michael Grumbine.
You know, this is being our second episode going through every film change in The Lord of the Rings. I'm a little surprised at how many people are annoyed that we're doing this. Hey, everybody. How's that for an intro?
Don't be annoyed.
I've gotten like on Twitter, we've gotten some comments. They're like, what, you just hate the movies? I'm like, gosh, guys, this isn't a zero-sum game. We're not like saying like, because there's a change, the movies completely suck. We're saying there's a change. Was it good or bad?
Yeah.
That's it. Anyway, I thought,
Well, maybe this is part of the hate that you get is to give Nick Groom his due. How's that for an intro? To give Nick Groom his due, a recent interviewee from the last couple months, there is a sense in which the movies have become part of the social milieu of the entertainment world and people's lives because, frankly, in America and Western culture in general, but actually across the world now, Western culture aside, we're becoming an entertainment culture. And so when you have a successful movie with as many, and it was ultimately very successful in a lot of ways, then people take it to heart. And so here we are 22, 24 years later, well, 23, and since the start, and people take it seriously. And so we're offending a lot of people, which makes us perfect for the modern age in the internet.
it's
do what you're good at in life.
Man. Oh my gosh. Yeah, it's funny. No, I just always respond with a smile and say, no, whatever. We're just it's just not, it's fine, guys. You can think what you want to think, but we're just gonna say what we think.
Turns out the purists didn't go away. Sorry.
We're gonna do it with a smile though. We're not angry.
Yeah, and actually I'm not angry. And then there are a lot of things that I think they did well for a movie. And
a lot. Well, based on our rating scale, we'll find out what a lot really means in about a year's time.
That's fair.
So thanks everybody for joining us. Wow, what an intro. We're on to parts 4, 5, and 6 in this podcast of the extended of every film change in The Lord of the Rings. Today we're going to be going over these are our non-published titles yet, so I'm not sure if they're going to stick, but Gandalf the Befuddled, Sam the Best Bud, and Merry and Pippin, the Pranksters. So we're going to go over the characters. And again, these are general changes. Like these are changes that you see throughout the entire story. So why are we doing like Sam now as a general change throughout the entire story? Well, that's because he's throughout the entire story. We're not going to do Faramir until the Two Towers. But so we're not going to do him until then because he's not right at the start. He's not a character through the whole storyline. So that's why we're doing these general changes from the characters that we start with. So we'll do this here. I mean, I guess we could do Elrond too if we really wanted to. So maybe we'll add him here too.
Want is a strong word in that case, but but just to address our haters for a second. First of all, thank you for watching, haters. Second of all, if you I think it's important for people to understand we are not approaching this from the perspective of here's an excuse for us to hate on the movies. We think it's important that people see the differences between the books, and there might be quite a few people who watch these videos who have never actually read the books fully through, and they may not 100%. Be aware of some of the changes. So they can like them, they can dislike them, they can do whatever they want, but we're just here to tell you these are the changes, and here's our opinion of them.
Right, and that's why my thumbnail on YouTube for the Lord of the Adaptations episode, number 1, the whole point that they make changes because it's an adaptation, so of course they're going to make a ton of changes. My thumbnail is the books do not equal the movies. And a couple people got all riled up about that. I'm like, well, did you read the books? Like, are you upset that the books are not the movies? Like, they're different, but don't like get mad at me for them not being the same. Anyway, we'll move on from that. We are going to have an extended podcast. We're going to talk more in detail about these changes and how we would have approached it and deal with a couple of questions from our fans. Our fans, that sounds so weird. From the folks who join us, from our community on Discord, which you can get by going to theonering.com/member, become a member, and join us there on Discord, where you can ask these questions that we will address in our extended podcast, which is usually about 20 minutes longer than the regular one. So just think about that. For $4 a month, you get a whole 80 additional minutes. Like That's like almost a whole movie's worth. And what does a movie cost you? $15. So here's your movie for $4. You get like a movie for 15. How's that for equivocating?
That's great. And just clear, I don't have any fans. There are no fans, but
no fans.
There are people that like to watch what stupid things I say. So here we go.
I like to watch the stupid things you say, Michael. It's a lot of fun.
Thank you.
That's the reason I'm here.
Excellent. I knew there was a reason.
All right, guys. So we're just going to jump right into it, and we're going to take a look at what we like to call Gandalf the Befuddled.
Just tea, thank you. I must see the head of my order. He is both wise and powerful. Trust me, Frodo. You'll know what to do.
So the ring of power has been found.
Under my very nose.
And yet you did not have the wit to see it.
It is a burden he should never have had to bear. We can ask no more of Frodo.
Gandalf, the ring cannot stay here.
Let the ring bearer decide.
All right. So you're probably wondering what is the point of all these different shots of Gandalf and the things he says here in the first part of Fellowship of the Ring. These are all places that differ pretty specifically from the books in how Gandalf approaches things. Gandalf in the books has, and feel free to jump in, Michael, if you want to add some detail to this. But Gandalf in the books has much more of a direction, right? He doesn't go to Saruman because he's unaware of what's going on. He goes to Saruman and because he's summoned there, not because I got to figure this out. He is the one that tells Elrond at the Council of Elrond that, let me get that quote. It's not our part here to take thought only for a season or for a few lives men or for passing of the world, meaning we got to do this right now. And he doesn't say Frodo can't do it. And when they're in the Misty Mountains, he's the one that says we got to go through Moria. He doesn't leave it up to the ring bearer. So he's much more decisive. He knows what he's led to know he's a leader because he leads. And I think that makes his death in Moria far more poignant in the films or in the movies. Sorry, in the books, not the movies, because he is a leader. He is a much clearer leader. And it starts, I mean, I hate to say it, it kind of starts right here in the beginning.
Just tea, thank you.
Right, with that, and that's when I first saw that, I was like, oh, that's Gandalf, right? He's so kind of out of it that he bonks his head. He's unaware. I get it. You kind of have to set the tone for the film a little bit and set the environment as a hobbit hole that's smaller. But he comes across as far less decisive, far more, as a befuddled, I guess is good, or dullard, doltish. So that's where I think a big character change to the whole thing.
And especially telling is that quote where he's sort of saying, "Don't worry, I'm going to go talk to Saruman. He'll know what to do."
Yeah.
Actually, in the books, he goes away to figure out what to do himself, and comes back many years later. And so there's a reality there that, and specifically the Council of Elrond, which was left entirely out of the movies. Gandalf actually references the fact that basically they leaned on Saruman because of his ring lore, and that was it. Like Saruman was like a subject matter expert on the rings, but Gandalf wasn't relying on Saruman's wisdom with regard to taking actions of what to do and all this other stuff. This is a changing character. I see it as a desire to show a contrast. Saruman is like the piercing intellectual who has been corrupted, and Gandalf is the simple, sort of hobbit-loving wizard who's kind of a bumbling, sort of well-meaning. In the books, it's different. In the books, Gandalf is the voice of Providence. He's actually the one that's always in a Rivendell, for example, as you pointed out, completely contradicts the Gandalf character, where Gandalf is the one saying that we need to rely on Providence, and basically Providence has chosen Frodo. I'm paraphrasing from a number of quotes there. So the difference in character is marked. It is a distinction I feel was made in order to show a contrast between the two wizards, because basically you got a couple of old wizard figures, and they try everything from the visuals to the staff to the attitude to give us a contrast. I feel like this is a very movie maneuver, but it lessens Gandalf by doing so.
So do we think that, like for me, Gandalf the White is not as different in the books as he is in the films?
Yeah, Gandalf the White is not. They make a real change, but in the movies, in the books, Gandalf the Gray is Gandalf the White has more power, and but he's still Gandalf, and he still has
Mhm.
the same character. In fact, he even has Gandalf's temper and jokes and all this other stuff.
Right, right.
There really there's a difference in clarity of purpose and power, but not really in terms of intellect. I just I just see I see the movie as deliberately making a contrast here between the two wizards. So that's my view.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. We could talk about this for a while, but let's go to our famous three questions now that we have one episode out. Famous here. So the first question we always ask when we go through each one of these changes is it lore friendly? Does this match up with what Tolkien intended for his world to look like? Michael, I'm going to go to you first on this one.
No.
That's a no. It's a big no.
Negative, Batman. Not lore friendly. Gandalf is not befuddled in the books. It doesn't mean he's perfect. He makes mistakes, but he's not befuddled.
Yeah, agreed. This one's kind of obvious. There's really the interpretation. It's not so much as an interpretation as a change. They decided to change his character and to make him more more Joe Biden and less Donald Trump. Is that too much?
Might be a little too much politically. And I want to point out, as our viewers can see, we're keeping a running counter of how many times the changes are lore friendly. And just so our viewers understand, this shouldn't be taken out of context. We are going through all of the changes between the movie and the book, not all of the ways that the movie portrays things in the book, just all the changes. So, of course, our numbers by the end of this series, or even through the middle of the series, they're going to be low because by necessity, when you're changing from the books, you're a lot of the time you're going to be lore unfriendly because you're by definition sort of departing from the books. So
the percentages, the
percentages will be lower.
The percentages will be lower. They wouldn't be as low as if you were going through the Rings of Power, though. So just take that to heart.
Right. I don't even think we could enumerate the number of changes from Rings of Power to the books. It's so ridiculous that the number would be beyond our count.
All right. The next question is the change necessary for cinema? Now, this is interesting. You could have a lot to talk about here. I will go first with this one. Is it necessary? No, it's not necessary. I can see why other people might think it is necessary because Gandalf would come off as, I don't know, too strong or too decisive, and Saruman is just playing secondhand and he's not enough of a villain. And I seem to remember Peter Jackson saying that they needed a villain for the first two movies. They needed something to fight against. They needed more than just the big eye. And if they didn't make Saruman more the aggressor, which they did against Gandalf and Orthanc, which they did on Caradhras, which they did in Rohan, right? It was far more tactile his hand was stirring into more pots than he ever was in the books. And so that part of the change, I think, goes hand in hand with the change to Gandalf, making him more.
See, that's a really good distinction, and I think if we get to the point where we're reviewing the changes in Saruman and his prominence in the movies versus the books, I might have a different answer. It might actually make it necessary for cinema to make a big bad in that case. In this case, though, you don't need to make Gandalf befuddled in order to put it on screen.
Yeah, agreed.
So it was a change that they thought was appropriate or improved the cinema, but that's not necessary. Our question is very specific. Is it necessary? No.
Wow. That's my first no. I'm proud that I went three whole episodes without saying no. That's my first no to isn't change necessary for cinema. My other three were yeses already. Look at this, 3 out of 3 yes. Okay, I move on. Next question. How much do you like the change? Now, this is interesting to me because I really like the way Ian McKellen portrayed Gandalf. I really do. I think he's warm, he's friendly, and I think the change actually endears him a little bit more. Like that, him hitting his head there is a very endearing thing in a hobbit hole, right? It grounds him in the world that we live in a way, right? He's not so aware of everything that he doesn't have to think, right? Things happen to him. So how much do I like the change after watching it? Like, I think he's probably, in my opinion, my favorite character in the films. Yeah. I'm going to give it a 4. I'm going to give it a 4. I think it's a good change. I think it worked well for the films, even though it wasn't necessary.
Right. I agree. I thought we were going to differ on this, but I'm going to go 4 as well. Because it is very weird, because I liked the change. And as you put it, I'll simply say this: it comes down to Ian McKellen. If this had been done by somebody else, I could see it not working. Ian McKellen has this sort of air of the wizard who's forgot more than he remembers, and there's a real endearing quality to that. So I agree with you. It is a 4. I was hovering between 3 and 4, but you don't allow me to do 3.5s. So I was
should we? Okay, this is now the question. Since this is early in our whole endeavor, we could start doing 3. We got to start doing should we do decimals? All right, let's do decimals, Michael. I'm going to make 3. An executive 3.5 right here. All right. All right. So it's a scale of like 1 to 100, or 1 to 10 to 100 now.
And the reason I wouldn't want to be 4
it's not
exactly.
going to work. My fonts are way too big on here.
Your fonts are too large.
3.5.
We'll have to fix this in post, but the
3.5.
I think 34. I like it 35 out of 5.
I can't do it. I wasn't ready for this, everybody. This is what happens when you fly by the skin. Sorry.
I screwed you over. Sorry about that. But the reason I'll say is 3.5 is I like what Ian McKellen did. I miss the Gandalf who's the voice of Providence, though, and he's not in the movies, and so I think there's something. It's barely, very endearing, but there's still something missing from Gandalf.
Yeah.
So you'll have to change the.
I can't do it, man. Everybody, this is
can't do
hard.
font size. Then 3.
Go. Bam. Okay. Magic. I know how to use computers. Everybody, this is great.
We're gonna
For those of you listening on the podcast, you're like, what are they doing? What in the world is going on there? Well, okay. All right. So 3.54. It is not necessary for cinema, and it is not Lord friendly. So, but see, look at that. Like we were negative on the first 2, but relatively positive on the changes. Like we were
so far. Keep going.
All right. Yeah. We will move on into the next one, which is Sam, the best bud.
Don't worry, Sam. Rosie knows an idiot when she sees one. Does she?
I was just cutting the grass under the window there, if you follow me.
A little late for trimming the verge, don't you think?
If I take one more step, it'll be the farthest away from home I've ever been.
So why are we calling this Sam the best bud? Well, if you've read The Lord of the Rings, what you'll find is, as the story starts, Sam is not referred to as Frodo's friend. In fact, Merry and Pippin, I did a little research, and Merry and Pippin in the first few chapters are called both Frodo's special friends and Frodo's best friends. And one of the only references to Sam as a friend was at the end of Return of the King, when Frodo calls Sam friend of friends. But that's only after they've been through everything. This is in Mordor. And so what we have instead is this Sam who becomes Frodo's buddy, the guy who he just hangs out with, which is completely different than what Tolkien wrote. Sam is Frodo's gardener. And in the film, is that even made clear? When I rewatched it, I was like, wait, they never even said, did they even say he's the gardener, right? And so that's why he calls Frodo master all the time. And when Frodo and Merry and Pippin are out on their hike to Rivendell, so to speak, Sam's kind of the one who gets the food cooked and gets the water and things like that. And so what Peter Jackson did is for better or worse, he turned Sam from a master servant kind of relationship into a best buds kind of relation. They're the guys who grew up together and they hung out together, and now they're going to go on an adventure together. And so that's really where this change comes from. Yeah. The question then becomes, is this something people could swallow now as using Master? I mean, does he say Master Frodo in the movies? I think so.
A couple times.
Or
Yeah.
does he say, he says Mr. Frodo a lot. But
I think he does refer to him as master in Mordor at least once or twice. So
Okay.
or Kirathungel once. Anyway,
Yeah.
I didn't count. I didn't do the official count, but it does do it, but very very little. It's not emphasized. Agree. There's and to my mind, this is really a change in emphasis there. So here's where I think this change is being overdone by those who are pointing it out as a change. Sam is Frodo's friend. Sam is also Frodo's servant. This is not an abnormal thing in British society.
Mm-hmm.
As Exhibit A, I offer for those who have read it, hopefully, or those who have seen it at least, the Jeeves and Wooster series by P.G. Wodehouse. This is an example of how master and servant, in fact, in the Jeeves and Wooster, this is by Stephen Fry and Hugh Laurie in the cinematic versions, the television versions. The butler Jeeves is in fact he's the smarter of the two. He's the one who wears the pants in the relationship, so to speak. And I'm not talking about anything sexual. I'm just talking about he's the one that drives the bus when it comes to the plot and getting and fixing things and everything else. So from the British perspective, the master-servant relationship is nothing like master-servant in America. So I see this as a bow via Hollywood to American sensitivity. Yeah. I see this as like we can't use the word master itself as a bad word. Like apparently now
can't have master bedrooms.
So not even any master bedrooms anymore apparently. Whereas this is just it does not compute to the British. And I agree with you. Merry and Pippin are Frodo's peers, and they are his friends from a peerage perspective. Sam is of a lower class. In the sense that he's first. Now the whole gardener thing, I think that's been overdone. Sam references specifically he was cutting the grass, and Gandalf makes a comment about trimming the verge. That's clear. Like that's the only reason he would be doing that is if he's the gardener. So it's clear he's the gardener. But they don't emphasize it, and they don't emphasize the servant relationship. Although they show it sometimes, like Sam's carrying the stuff all the time, and so he's doing the manual labor, and then in the in the second movie he does do the cooking, outside in Municipal. So in Ithilien, rather Municipal, not Municipal, Ithilien. So there's I just think this is an emphasis change. They changed the emphasis and they emphasize their friendship. They are indeed friends. There is no doubt about that. And there is no contradiction in that either, according to the exemplar that Tolkien is referencing when he's talking about the master-servant relationship.
Agreed. All right, so let's jump into the questions then. Is it lore friendly? I'll go first on this one.
Mm-hmm.
I think it is. I think it's actually fine. I think it's. I think they're friends. They're not best buds, though. They're not. The relationship that Merry and Pippin have with Frodo is more of an acute friendship in the books than it is in the films. Certainly, with how they're portrayed in the films, it would be completely different because they're nowhere near as mature as Frodo. But I think having him as a friend is lore friendly, and it's close enough that I'm not negative about this one.
So I'm with you as well. Not much change here between us. Sorry to disappoint, but it is for the exact reasons you said. It is lore friendly. It's just a matter of emphasis rather than change, in my mind.
Yeah, agreed. All right, so let's get on to the next question, which is the change necessary for cinema? You go first, Michael. We'll keep trading off.
The change is this is a tough one. Mm-hmm. Is it necessary for cinema? Technically, no, but it's necessary. But with the international audience, it might be necessary.
Let's assume that's part of cinema.
Okay, so with the international audience, is it necessary? Is the emphasis
this
necessary?
Is hard. I know this is a hard one too.
To do what they're trying to do and show the friendship between the two, I think the master-servant emphasis would have detracted from the friendship if you had emphasized that. And so I will say, yes, it is necessary for cinema.
Okay. I'm halfway between both of them. I could say either yes or no. So I'm going to go with no, and here's why. it's necessary for cinema because of how they changed Merry and Pippin, I think. If they had made them less of what we'll get into the next episode, which is the pranksters, then I don't think you'd have to make Sam as much of a best bud, close friend. Now, you could show the relationship develop as the books does as they go on the journey together to destroy the ring. But I don't think that this idea that they're the guys, they're the guys that grew up together, that hang out and have beers together, that smoke together, right? I don't think that was the way to necessarily begin the relationship between the two of them.
Yeah, and I agree with you with the clips part, but I would say that the emphasis, like their relationship across the movies, is not represented by those minor clips. That's the intro, which I agree those are not necessary for cinema, but I do think they're going to lose. They're going to confuse a large amount of the international audience by emphasizing the master-servant relationship. I think it's a very British thing that is not really very applicable across any culture outside of Britain.
Yeah.
So,
like I said, I could go either way, but I think there's an argument to be made that it's not completely necessary for cinema either.
And now our numbers are back to being the same again.
Oh, dang it! Shoot. I just can't be the one. All right. So, how much do you like the change? You go first this time, Michael.
Emphasis wise, I like the emphasizing friendship. 4.5.
Right. 4.5. Wow.
Yep, I think it's strong because I think the whole point is to emphasize friendship between the two and to build that into something which makes the sacrifices in Mordor and at the edge of Mordor believable. Now there are a bunch of changes they made to the end of Mordor Cirith Ungol that I hate, but this emphasizing of the friendship is a strong one. I like it.
4.5. I'm not going to be that high. And this is just
you're not supposed to be comparing to me. You're supposed to just be telling me.
No, I'm not comparing to you. I just know that's my starting point. I know I'm not going to be that high. I'm trying to figure out, okay. I'm going to go 3.5. I'm just my pure side comes out and says, like, I would like to see what Tolkien wrote rather than
so you're more than neutral then. You like it more than
well, I think it was acted so well, and I think it does help the relationship from the start develop into the close bond that they had that spawned so much fiction from fans that shouldn't have been spawned. However,
sure.
Yeah, I mean, I like, here's the thing is this isn't one of those changes where I looked at it and went like, ew. like Elrond, even like Merry and Pippin. I think that's not a change that I'm going to.
And I'll tell you the origin of the 4.5 has largely to do with the fact that I didn't even see this as a change until it was pointed out. And for me, because I do notice changes, it was pointed out, and then I realized, no, they're right. It isn't a change in emphasis. And so I didn't notice, but I caught some of the references to Sam being a servant. Like, it's not like they don't mention that at all. Like that, as if he and Frodo are equally bearing all burdens. No, I'm aside from the ring. They don't do that. They do keep him in this sort of subservient role in that relationship. Mm-hmm. So I just didn't even notice the emphasis until it was pointed out. And the fact that I didn't notice it means that I must have liked it a decent amount. So anyway, there we go.
Or maybe you just watched, it was too late at night and you had a long day at work and you forgot to actually notice it. Maybe that was the other thing.
Maybe I'm not a purist enough. That's right.
All right. There you have it. What do you guys think? Put your comments below about, like, this is one of the first changes that I think is like this and the Gandalf one, right? Like, I'm sure you guys have opinions, and a lot of you are going to disagree, as we discussed far earlier if you listen to the whole podcast. So
we love it.
And if you
agree.
And if you do have changes, don't forget you can submit them at theonering.com/changes, and we will add them to our list. We have in the last week in the last 2 days, I think I've gotten 30 more, and so we've got to start triaging these things. Mike and I will go over them. Some of them are really small, and we're not going to, like I said, we have to have 5 minutes to talk about them, guys. But when we have only he wasn't trimming the verge, he was cutting the grass. Like I'm not gonna I'm not going to get into those sorts of idiosyncrasies between the two films. So, or between the books and the films.
Big one, big one. Supposed to stick it in the ground?
It is in the ground.
Outside.
That was your idea.
Mariadoc Brandybuck and Peregrine Took. I might have known.
Frodo! Merry, it's Frodo Baggins.
Hello, Frodo.
You've been in the Farmer Maggot's crop.
Wait, we're coming too.
Anyway, you need people of intelligence on this sort of mission. Quest. Thing.
This is the biggest change that I noticed at first when I saw the films, is that Merry and Pippin are very different characters now. And let's not forget that in the books, one of the things we'll go over is everybody's a lot younger right now in the films. In the books, Frodo's almost 50, right? Or is he over 50?
No, he's 50.
He's 50.
He's exactly 50, 17 years after he turns 33.
33, that's right. So Merry and Pippin are his peers, are his, as we mentioned in the last episode, are his best friends and but they're not these kinds of pranksters that will, steal set off one of Gandalf's fireworks, or listen in on the Fellowship as it's being created, or steal the crops from Farmer Maggot. In fact, Merry is the respectable one who in the books takes care of Frodo's house at Crick Hollow. This guy right there, he's so goofy. And he organizes Frodo's move, and he's the one that figures out that like Frodo's been hiding the ring, right? There's a depth to Merry that is not this sort of surface level teenage prankster type of character that they have. And Pippin, he's the youngest of the hobbits, and so he's the guy who in the book, maybe the best way to put it is he has a tendency to sometimes think first or speak first before he thinks. And so he'll say about like he's hungry without realizing like it's not appropriate to say he's hungry, or like, I'm so tired right now, what are we doing? That sort of stuff. Whereas in the films, right, he's especially sort of this goofy, right? He's the guy who knocks the skeleton into the well in Moria. They're very, very different. Right? These characters are the first true characters in the films that are very different from who they are in the books. What was your first take on them when the first time you saw them in the films, Michael?
Okay, we will then disagree on Pippin. Pippin is not different, is my claim from the books. Not very different. He is somewhat different. So they emphasize his silliness, but Pippin is making jokes and is the butt of jokes in the books quite frequently. So he does indeed knock down, like the Fool of a Took line is from the books.
Oh, I know that.
Yeah. But what I'm saying is like so we're invited to laugh at him, or at least roll our eyes at him there. I have a couple quotes from the books. In Crick Hollow, Pippin, and when they announced to Frodo that they're coming with him, and therefore we must too. Merry and I are coming with you. Sam is an excellent fellow and would jump down a dragon's throat to save you if he did not trip over his own feet. But you will need more than one companion in your dangerous adventure. So he's doing that hobbitish. He's making a joke at Sam's expense, but he's being a jokester in this regard. When he's riding to Minas Tirith on the back of Shadowfax with Gandalf, "Mercy," cried Gandalf, "if the giving of knowledge is be the cure of your inquisitiveness, I shall spend all the rest of my days in answering you. What more should you like to know? The names of all the stars and of all the living things and the whole history of Middle-earth and Overheave and of the sundering seas." Laughed Pippin. Of course, what less? So what I'm pointing out is that Tolkien actually uses him as comedic, but not slapstick comedy, not the way it does in the film. So I agree with there. So this scene here.
Look at this. Yes. That's what I mean. This is not.
But when you look through the book, throughout the movie, they do emphasize Pippin's laugh at him and laugh with him more than they do in the books. But there were jokes that Pippin makes in the books and that where you're supposed to laugh at him that didn't make it to the movie. So all I'm pointing out is, in my opinion, this is a change to Merry's character more than it is to Pippin's. So with regard to Merry, this is a vast change. Merry is not like this at all in the books. With regard to Pippin, it's just an emphasis of what Tolkien also does in the books.
Here's the way that I would put it with how the movie portrays Pippin, and I'll leave it at this: is that he has a lower IQ than the other hobbits. He's not on the same, and that's not what comes across in the books. He might be he's kind of the funny guy who gets the butt end of the jokes, but he also like ribs them a little bit too. But he's not the dumb guy. And in the movies, right, he's the one that gets hit in the head with an apple and kind of looks funny up, right? Even those little things, it makes a big change to how we perceive Pippin, we perceive Pippin in the films. So
comedic slapstick is definitely that's the point. And I agree with you. Pippin is being portrayed, especially with the comment about people of intelligence, and then Merry says, well, that leaves out you, Pippin.
Exactly.
In the movies. Yeah. And so that's clearly there in the movies. So
is it lore friendly?
Well, I have a big problem with this, because with question 6, the problem I have with the lore question is it lore friendly? Yes for Pippin-ish. Yes-ish. No for Merry. So I still think it's keeping to Tolkien using Pippin as comedic. Tolkien does use Pippin as comedy intro and exit. He's just not the bumbling fool, despite Gandalf's calling him a fool of a took. He's not. He's sometimes foolish, but he's not the idiot that Peter Jackson makes him out to be. So
did you say yes or no?
I don't know. I'm deciding. You go first, because I have a yes for Pippin and a no for Merry. Yeah. So I don't know what I'm saying.
It's a no, man. I'm sorry. When you change the especially since we're joining Merry and Pippin together, I mean, I think it's a no. I mean,
I think you're right. I got to go with no, because ultimately it would have to, the way our question is phrased, it would have to be both of them being lore friendly. I do actually think it's lore friendly for Pippin. It's just not very. It's only barely, and it's a comedic emphasis rather than. So when you ask the question, is it lore friendly? You have to understand. Here's the way I'm taking it. Maybe you're taking it differently. When I see the question, is it lore friendly? I'm not saying the question in my mind is it lore accurate, lore specific?
It's not verbatim. Does it match with what the spirit
question
of what Tolkien wrote?
Is it in the spirit that Tolkien wrote these characters when it comes to character questions like this one? And I do think it is in Pippin's spirit. It's just taken to a degree which Tolkien would never have taken it to. Right. So.
And that spirit, the spirit of the lore is going to be different for each one of us. So I'm hoping that eventually these numbers will be different. I think they will be.
Okay. Oh, they'll be different, but so far not so much.
Okay, is the change necessary for cinema?
No, the change is not necessary for cinema.
Why? Do you think it would make the movie better? I mean, if you were to leave Merry as the mature one?
That's a different question.
Meaning, if you took out their prankster nature, would it make the film better?
Maybe we should actually change our question. This is we can throw this to our audience to say as well, to give us comment on this. Does the change make better cinema? Would be another way of asking the question. Because the word necessary means that we're going to get a lot of no's, which is fine.
All right, let's change it, Michael. Let's do it right now. How do we put that? Does the change
make for better cinema?
Does the change make the movie better?
Sure. You could just say make better cinema.
Man, I don't want to have to edit this. You think I'm cutting this out? I'm not. Does the change make better cinema? All right, so now that's the question.
Okay, well, that's Michael, a tougher one.
That's now. So we'll leave. We're not going to go back and change the other ones. But
no, I understand. Our count is low enough. We're only on question 6. Does the change make better cinema to change Merry's character? No, I still say no. I would like Merry as the more serious one. Remember in the Old Forest in the book, he takes the role of the guide. He's going to lead them through the Old Forest, and he doesn't do a good job, but he clearly tries to take the leadership role, and he's the older one. And I like him having a different character than Pippin. I think that keeps us from brushing all hobbits with the same wide brush. So anyway, I say no. Doesn't make better cinema.
I'm trying to think if I would have liked the film better if Merry would have been more serious or less, um, and if Pippin would have been less of a low IQ hobbit or more of a high IQ hobbit. Um, Man, I don't want to be the same, but I'm gonna have to
No,
say
forget
no.
the fact that we're doing the count, dude. Just answer. We just got to
I
answer the
know, I know,
questions.
no, but I mean, I want to, I don't want to just knee jerk react and say no or yes or no. I want to actually think about it
Mhm.
and talk it through because when Michael and I do this, we're not talking beforehand what we think about all this. In fact, I don't want to think a
Nope.
ton about these items before we do it, even though I had a hand in setting all this up and everything. But thinking about it in depth each time makes me wonder, like, would I have liked movies better or not? Like, some people I'm sure would go to Faramir and say, hey, Faramir is better because he was conflicted now. Well, I disagree, but I'm sure there's some people who believe that. With this one, yeah, I think if they would have kept other characters more closer to the books, you could have kept Merry and Pippin more closer to who they were in the books too. Yeah, so that's I don't know.
So I see it, and to put it a different way, I think Merry could have been shown as an out of depth hobbit, like he was in the book, without being the same comedic style as Pippin.
That's a good way of putting it.
You could have shown him to be a hobbit growing and becoming the Meriadoc knight of Rohan that he becomes by the end
Right.
of
And
the books.
and in fact, you could have done that really early when in the books they all meet the elves, right? Gildor,
Good
and
point.
there is when they speak to them very reverently, and you could have made the point in the films like they're out of their depth here, right? These are people who they don't normally deal with, and they don't even know how to communicate with in a way, right? They don't know how to speak with them, and yeah, that would have been much better. But they had Frodo and Sam in the extended edition simply watch some elves uh walk away to the Grey Havens with their own hiking music going on.
Hmm.
So it
And
was very ethereal hiking music. So I think that's where we are with does the change make better cinema? So the last question then becomes how much do you like the change? How much do you like the change? All right, I'll go first. 1.7. I'm really leaning
wait,
into the
now
point.
we're going into tenths.
Oh man,
We're not even doing 1.5.
you opened the floodgates
Oh
with
my
the
gosh.
points. We don't have to. So why? This is like
How
rating
funny! How funny!
gymnastics.
So you really don't like the change there?
I
Okay.
really don't like. I just I'm a very when it comes down to it for these films, I'm totally okay being known as a purist who wants to see what
Yeah,
Tolkien
yeah.
wrote because I still think it's better than what was put on film. Ultimately, altogether, I'd like to see what Tolkien wrote on film.
I'm not that harsh about this one, and the reason is because with so many characters, they're trying to make us do a cinematic thing where the two of them are easily identifiable as the comedic character. So I get it, and so I dislike it, but not by much. So 2.6 is my rating.
2.6. All right, you're still a little more than halfway. Yeah, I think, and we can talk about this in the extended podcast, which you can get by going to theonering.com/member, become a member for $4 a month and get our extended podcast and join us on Discord. But we'll talk about, like, I think there are ways you could have made the characters different without making them the pranksters. And I think that would have been more in keeping with what Tolkien intended for the hobbits to be, rather than these teenage, high school jokesters that are
Yep.
causing havoc,
Agreed.
dancing
All
on
right.
tables. All right, so
thus ends the sixth change. The end.
thus ends the sixth change, but we're not done because we've got to go into our extended podcast. And I know it's been a while, guys, but if you like Tolkien, remember that, guys. Remember the whole
That thing we used to do.
If you like Tolkien,
I actually don't have anything, but I just wanted to hear it to let you know that we're going to do it again sometime.
If you
Okay,
like Tolkien, you'll like Jonathan
this?
better than Michael at this
All right,
point in the
we'll
podcast.
have to do this. Do you see if you're on? Do you see that right there? Oh wait, right, man, I can't. I'm all backwards here. Right there, that thing.
Legos.
That's Legos. We'll have to show you that because if you like Tolkien, you would have probably liked those.
Pretty
Legos.
dang cool.
So anyway, we're going to jump into our extended podcast. We're going to talk about more thoughts about since we disliked Gandalf the Befuddled, Sam the Best Bud, or we didn't dislike. It was not lore friendly for some of these things. Like, what would we have done if we could have kept them more lore friendly? And then we're going to talk about more in detail about why isn't it that maybe the master-servant relationship between Frodo and Sam wouldn't be acceptable or wouldn't be understood, like you said, Michael. I think we can get into more detail about on that. And then talking, yeah, like I know Naya in our Discord, she mentioned she hated how they changed Mary too. So we'll get into some of her comments on that too. So if you want to get that, go to thewarning.com/member, become a member there. First month is free, $4 a month. We just had a new member join today. And we've got a few more this month already, and so we're glad to have you on board. We're really excited that the community is growing, and there are more people in there every month, and we're happy to have you. So thank you, everybody.
We love everyone, but we have a special love for you, members.
Yes.
And as far as everyone else, goodbye, freeloaders.